Hey YouTube, it's Little John. I'm from East Tennessee, and today I'm going to talk to you about why I'm a TVA Socialist. Before we go into the technicalities of that, let me just say that the reason I'm publishing this video now is largely because I want to contribute to the discourse, push back against the ideological railing against socialism as though it were not somehow a part of the American economy. It's actually very much a part of the American system of enterprise, and people sort of need to get their definitions right so that they can actually be consistent with their own principles and not sort of saw off the branch that they're sitting on. So I'm going to talk to my fellow East Tennesseans here for a little bit. If you live in this part of the country and generally in the Tennessee Valley, there's about a 99% chance that you receive electricity that was produced, whether in whole or in part, by the Tennessee Valley Authority, which is a department of the federal government. Now, I know that there are some people in very high places, even in our own executive branch, that would really sort of like to undermine that fact. But for the time being, the Tennessee Valley Authority, or TVA, is a department of the federal government, and it is the major producer of electricity in the Tennessee Valley, period. You could even go so far as to say that in this part of the country, at least by and large, it has a monopoly in certain areas. And if you think that that's not sufficient enough to make the point, well, no, I don't get electricity from the TVA, I get electricity from the Knoxville Utilities Board. Well, that doesn't really help you out, because the Knoxville Utility Board is a department of the metropolitan government of either Knox County or the city of Knoxville, or both, and that's also a state agency in some sense. It's a government agency, and just figure it out. In this part, here around me, from Jefferson County and every territory immediately around me, every single local electric company, every single electric system in my geographic area, the one that serves me and every single one around it, is either a municipal electric system that's operated by a local government, whether county or city, or it's an electric cooperative that was established out of loans that were funded by the federal government as part of the New Deal, and is structured on a cooperative model, which means that every single member of the co-op is in part owner of the company in the same way, or at least a way by analogy, with the shareholders of a for-profit, publicly traded Fortune 500 organization and the likes thereof. Now, if you live in East Tennessee and are still on the grid, because I know some of you have probably moved off the grid by now, but if you are on the grid and you are taking power out of a municipal electric system or a co-op, a rural electric cooperative that is purchasing its electricity from the Tennessee Valley Authority, you are buying into a socialist electric scheme. Period. By definition. The point of me saying that isn't to say that somehow you need to get off the grid because socialism is such a radically thing. It's just wake up a little bit and recognize socialism in its place is not an intrinsic evil. There are very good reasons why a public organization should have charge of the hydroelectric dams that obstruct the waterways throughout this Tennessee Valley that are supposed to prevent flooding and provide for recreational use and furnish the electricity to the secret city and Alcoa as when the Manhattan Project was still online. It's there's very good reasons that a private organization doesn't need to be involved in that, or that it doesn't need to have primary authority there, that a public agency should be operating these things. If you don't believe that, look in the vast majority of jurisdictions throughout the country where public utilities are privately owned, and recognize that even in those jurisdictions there exist state regulators that are supposed to sort of tamp down on the encroachment of the profit interests and the interests in favor of consumer interests, and probably also in terms of environmental factors. So you're going to have a state agency to regulate private industry. That happens anyway, and the local electric cooperatives and the municipal electric systems are under these regulations also, so it's not entirely distinctive. But I will tell you, when I know that my electric cooperative has an obligation to listen to my feedback, when I know that the people that are in charge there have a responsibility to solicit my input as part of their governing structure, I feel much safer about the long-term implications of just the way that the cooperative does business. When I know that they have an internal mandate to keep costs to their consumers at a minimum with respect to their longevity needs in terms of maintenance on the infrastructure and providing for the employment of their linesmen and such, it's like I have every reason to believe that the company is internally motivated to do the best interest by the consumers that they serve. I don't have that trust with a for-profit agency because I understand what this does to the consideration of things. When you have people, stockholders mainly, that are investing in a company from outside that don't have any vested interest in the welfare of the customer. So that's basically why I'm a TVA socialist. I respect the fact that my voice gets to be heard even though I've never exercised that right. I recognize the fact that as things stand today, whether I'm in Knoxville or in Morristown or in Sevierville or a tourist in one of these areas coming from abroad, the benefit of having electricity is definitely a public good. And there is no reason to say that somehow, just in principle, a private enterprise would do better. The people that are operating these industries have a vested interest in their communities in the same way that a private industry would, and I would dare say a little bit better, because they have structural mandates that require them to advocate for the interests of their consumers or the economic interests of the county government, which, if you've ever been in Jefferson County politics, you know that funding is an issue. So so like the welfare of the local community is well served here in East Tennessee by municipal electric systems, the Tennessee Valley Authority as a department of the federal government, and rural electric co-ops that are owned by their members in block and therefore constitute a public ownership of a public ownership of the means of production of electricity as a good and service in terms of its creation, generation, and the retail and distribution aspect of it, good and service, both things there together. That is socialism. If you pay into it, you're participant in it. You may not think that you need to paint the entire economy with organizations that are structured in that way, but you can at least acknowledge that in this little section of the economy, socialism is a good thing. And you can do that and still be fundamentally consistent with your intellectual and philosophical responsibilities as a good human being. You don't have to rail against socialism where it is working. And that's the reason why I think that those of you who are listening need to understand that it is a good thing to be a TVA socialist, and I am one. And if you are too, join me. Let me go ahead and just share with you one more thing. This is the map of the service region of Appalachian Electric Cooperative. Right over here. It extends beyond Jefferson County into Granger County, up further north of Appalachian Electric is the Powell utility. Let's see, what's Powell Valley Electric Cooperative. Here, it's around the Morristown area. The city of Morristown and some areas around it are served by the Morristown Utilities District, if I'm not mistaken, or whatever name they have. Down here to the south of the Appalachian Electric Cooperative Service area is the Sevier County Electric System, and then over here in Knoxville is the KUB, or the Knoxville Utilities Board. Then out here in Newport and Cott County, you have Newport Utilities. Every single electric utility in this geographic region is public in one form or another, either the cooperative model or the municipal electric system, and they all buy their electricity from the TVA. It's socialism by definition. Why can't we respect the fact that socialism, in this case, is a good thing? Who in their right mind, paying your bill, has anything to complain about that isn't common to everybody? Let me take you to another document here, just in case you think that that's not good enough. This is a report. It's got recent data. I'll show you the name of the organization. It's the U.S. Energy Information Administration, or EIA.gov. And the name of this report is Electric Power Monthly, and they have the cost to residents in figures from April 2026 and the year before by state average and census region average from the states. Now, I'm not going to go through every state, but if you look up here in the New England average is 29 cents per kilowatt hour. The Mid-Atlantic average, which includes New York and around there, is 25 cents per kilowatt hour. As you move toward the Midwest, you get down to about 20 cents per kilowatt hour. Then as you move even further into the Plain States, you get down to 15 cents per kilowatt hour. North Dakota is surprisingly low, the lowest rate that I've seen here at 12.35 cents per kilowatt hour. And then you move over to the Atlantic coast, and the rates are a little bit higher than they're between the Northeast corridor and the Midwest. It's ranges from 16 cents. I see some 15, low 15s, and then all the way up. DC's got 25 cents per kilowatt hour, but the average is 16 cents per kilowatt hour. And then in my part of the country, you've got an average, Alabama, Kentucky, Mississippi, Tennessee. The average is about 16 cents per kilowatt hour, but Tennessee comes in at the lowest at 14.94 cents per kilowatt hour, which is basically 15 cents per kilowatt hour. And if I'm not mistaken, the rate that I saw on the last bill that I looked at was closer to 13 cents per kilowatt hour. So by comparison to the rest of the nation, especially in where you're talking about urban centers and where people really live, the product that is being offered here in East Tennessee is not only as good as what's being marketed in those parts of the country, but it is at a significantly competitive cost. If you look at the map, like the average for the whole report, it's 18.83 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, I don't actually know how that average is, or total is calculated precisely, but 15 cents per kilowatt hour in Tennessee, and let's say that it's lower than that here in Jefferson County, I think. I would have to check to be sure, is considerably less than 18.83 in terms of averages. Why? So recognizing that, you can clearly see that there are other parts of the country where the rates typically are lower. But for populations as rich as they are here in East Tennessee, the fact that we are further south and we need air conditioners a little bit more than they may need in the Plain States. We're not fracking either, so that we don't have the advantage of that, or ethanol, whatever. I don't know enough about electric production really to understand what makes one market competitive over the other. But what I can tell you is that just this figure alone shows that the TVA and the distributors in the municipal and cooperative distributors in our area, as well as probably the for-profit ones that exist in these certain areas like Kingsport, I think. They're doing fine here. There's no need. There's clearly there's clearly no good economic reason as far as the consumer is concerned to privatize these operations. Now, I don't hear a lot of people advocating for the privatization of these things, but I have heard at least a couple of times that some people very high up in the executive branch and then some of our own state representatives are looking at privatizing the TVA. What for? It's a public good. The goods that the TVA provides are public. The dams are public. The rivers are public. The recreational life is for the public. The wildlife conserves that are scattered around these lakeways are in the interests of the public. How in the world would a for-profit organization subject to state regulations have any value added to the company apart from what you could obtain from within these public organizations through good leadership? And what incentive is lacking in these organizations apart from to bring in good leadership? Is the people who are coming into these organizations have interests in doing good by their people, or at least just making a good living. They're doing a good job. I don't understand. I cannot understand, apart from a profit motive, why anybody would think that it would be a good idea to privatize the electric system here in the Tennessee Valley. Given the fact that hasn't happened yet, and that if you live around me, you're going to be buying your electricity from somebody who's buying it from the federal government through a department that is entirely financially solvent and well operated, and has as part of its charter environmental concerns that don't require encroachment from the EPA because the concern is built into the thing. You can't persuade me that privatization of this industry is going to be better. If you're willing to go on with your life and say that things are working well just fine, I'll pay my bill and be happy, just recognize that it's socialized. Your electricity, both in terms of what's bringing it to you and in terms of where it's coming from, is socialized if you live in the Tennessee Valley. Recognize it. Just accept it as a fact, because that's what it is. It's just a fact. Be happy about it. Be thankful for what you got. And be a TVA socialist like me.